campfire. Scary tailies. Black Hollow Sacrifice. Chapter 1. The Wrong Turn. The Jeep Cherokee's headlights cut through the thick forest darkness like a surgeon's scalpel, illuminating swirling mist that seemed to dance just beyond the hood. Jake Whitewhite's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as the vehicle bounced violently over another unseen route. Jesus Christ, Jake. Watch the damn road. Sarah Myers braced herself against the dashboard, her manicured nails digging into the cracked leather. In the back seat, Mark Delaney let out a whoop, raising his half-empty whiskey bottle. That's the spirit. Real off-road adventure, baby. The scent of bourbon and sweat mixed unpleasantly in the enclosed space. Emily Carter, squeezed between Mark and the silent Tyler Boone, stared at her phone in growing alarm. Guys, my GPS just glitched out. The map's gone completely blank. A sudden thump against the undercarriage made them all jump. The Jeep lurched sideways before Jake regained control. What the hell was that? Sarah shrieked. Tyler, who hadn't spoken since they left the highway, finally turned from the window. His voice came out flat, ominous. We shouldn't be here. As if in response, the trees suddenly parted to reveal a clearing bathed in eerie moonlight. At its center stood a crumbling cabin, its roof sagging like a broken spine. Behind it, barely visible through the mist, rows of crooked headstones protruded from the earth at unnatural angles. The engine died with a final shudder. Chapter 2. The Hungry Walls. The cabin door resisted at first and gave way with a scream of rusted hinges. A wave of stale air rushed out, a stench of mildew, rotting meat, and something metallic that made Emily gag. Mark was the first inside, his flashlight beam revealing grotesque details. Deep scratch marks covering every wall. A rusted meat cleaver embedded in the kitchen table. Strange symbols carved into the floorboards that seemed to shift when looked at directly. Check this out, Jake called from the corner. His light illuminated a stack of yellowed newspapers from 1982. The headline screamed, Local teenagers vanish in Black Hollow Woods' 5th disappearance this month. Sarah's scream came from upstairs. They found her frozen in the master bedroom, pointing at the wall where 5 nooses hung from the rafters. Beneath each, names were scrawled in what looked like dried blood. Jake, Sarah, Emily, Mark, Tyler. As they watched in horror, fresh liquid began seeping from the letters, dripping onto the warped floorboards with audible plops. The whispering started then, not from one direction, but from everywhere at once. The walls themselves seemed to breathe the words, Stay, join us, feed us. Chapter 3. The Graves That Call. They fled outside, only to find the mist had thickened into an impenetrable wall around the clearing. Tyler made a dash for the Jeep, but recoiled. The tires had been slashed, the windshield cracked in a spiderweb pattern centered on one word: run. Emily's flashlight beam caught movement in the cemetery. The earth around 5 particular graves was shifting, as if something beneath was pushing upward. Those dates, Sarah choked out, pointing at the fresh headstones. That's today's date. A sickening crack split the air as the first coffin erupted from the ground. The corpse that clawed its way out was all wrong. Its limbs too long, fingers ending in jagged bone spurs. Its jaw unhinged with a wet pop, releasing a guttural shriek that sent birds exploding from the trees. Mark grabbed a rusted shovel, leaning against a tree. I'm not dying in this shithole. He swung with all his strength. The blade connected with the creature's skull with a nauseating crunch. Black ichor sprayed across his face as the thing kept coming. Then the ground beneath them began to tremble. More graves ruptured. Dozens of skeletal hands burst through the soil, grasping at the air. From the cabin behind them came the sound of every window shattering simultaneously. Chapter 4. The Feeding. Tyler went down first. A bony hand shot from the earth and wrapped around his ankle. They heard the snap of bone before he even had time to scream. Then the ground swallowed him whole. His terrified shrieks cut off abruptly as dirt filled his mouth. Sarah and Emily ran for the tree line, only to recoil as the branches themselves came alive, whipping forward like lashes to slice deep gashes across their arms. Jake swung a tire iron at the advancing corpses, connecting with one skull. The creature's head exploded in a shower of maggots and decay, yet it kept moving. Mark had turned into a frenzy of violence, his shovel rising and falling in bloody arcs. But for every corpse he destroyed, 2 more took its place. His triumphant yell turned to a gurgle as something's elongated fingers speared through his abdomen from behind. Emily watched in frozen horror as Sarah was dragged backward by her hair toward the cabin. The front door yawned open like a hungry mouth, darkness spilling out to wrap around her friend. Sarah's screams echoed until the door slammed shut with finality. Then the whispers became a roar. The remaining corpses turned in unison toward Jake and Emily. The last thing Emily saw before the darkness took her was the cabin's porch light flickering on, illuminating a shadowy figure in the doorway. Impossibly tall, its smile stretching far too wide. Chapter 5. The New Guardians. Deputy Wilkins found the abandoned Jeep 2 weeks later during a routine patrol. The vehicle was in perfect condition. No slashed tires, no cracked windshield, just an empty whiskey bottle rolling on the floorboards. His flashlight beam caught something nailed to a nearby tree. 5 photographs, recent, crisp. Jake, Sarah, Emily, Mark, and Tyler, their faces frozen in expressions of abject terror. Beneath each photo, a lock of hair tied with what looked like human tendon. The cabin door stood invitingly open when he approached. Inside, the table was set for 5. Each plate held the still steaming organ, a heart, lungs, a liver. The silverware gleamed despite layers of dust. Wilkins never saw the shadows detach from the walls, never heard the whispers that promised he'd make a fine 6th guardian. But the next group of campers would find his patrol car abandoned near the trailhead, engine running, driver's door hanging open. And if they listened very carefully as they passed the crooked cabin in Black Hollow, they might hear a new voice joining the whispers. Stay, join us, feed us. Chapter 6. The Beckoning Dark. Deputy Daniel Wilkins' breath came in short, ragged gasps as he stepped through the crooked doorway of the cabin. The air inside was thick with the scent of old blood and damp earth, a smell that reminded him of his grandfather's root cellar where they'd hung deer carcasses to age. His flashlight beam cut through the gloom, illuminating dust motes that swirled like disturbed spirits. The dining table stood exactly as described in the missing persons report. 5 plates, 5 chairs. But something was different now. Wilkins' pulse hammered in his throat as he counted again. 6 chairs. The new one looked freshly carved, its oak surface still glistening with sap that dripped onto the floorboards with slow, deliberate plops. The plates were no longer empty. Each held something glistening and wet, organs that pulsed rhythmically despite having no bodies to sustain them. From the stone fireplace, shadows moved against the darkness. Not just absence of light, but something more substantial. The deputy's light passed right through them, illuminating nothing. Then the whispers came, not from the corners of the room, from inside his skull. We've been waiting for you, Daniel. The ledger needs your signature. Memories that weren't his own flooded Wilkins' mind. His great-great-grandfather standing in this very room, dipping a quill into ink darker than midnight. The price for 7 generations of protection. The cost of keeping Black Hollow quiet. The ledger lay open on the table now, its pages fluttering despite the still air. Fresh ink spelled out the new terms in handwriting that matched his ancestors perfectly. 1 soul per decade to keep the Hollow sleeping. Failure means the seal breaks. Wilkins didn't remember drawing his service revolver, but suddenly it was in his hand, the cold metal pressed against his temple. His finger tightened on the trigger, not by his will, as the shadows rushed forward. Outside, 6 graves pulsed faintly in the moonlight. Chapter 7. The Shepherd's Duty. Reverend James McAllister's knees ached against the cold concrete of the church basement. Dust motes danced in his flashlight beam as he pored over the ancient records. Something had been nagging at him ever since those college kids disappeared near the old Hollow cabin. The census records told an impossible story. Every year since 1842, Black Hollow had recorded exactly 333 residents. Not 332. Not 334. The number never changed. Not even after the influenza outbreak of 1918, or the mining accident that should have claimed 15 lives. Mendel Lister's hands trembled as he turned another brittle page. The photographs were worse. Annual Harvest Festival pictures showed the same faces decade after decade, aging just slightly each year. There was Mrs. Henderson from the flower shop, looking no older in a 1927 photograph than she did now. A cold draft licked the back of his neck. The flashlight beam caught the iron shackles bolted to the foundation stones. Small, child-sized, their surfaces worn smooth from use. When McAllister touched them, the metal was warm. Above him, the church bell began to toll. Not the steady, measured peals of Sunday service. This was frantic, uneven, the sound of something desperate. McAllister took the stairs 2 at a time, bursting into the sanctuary just as every Bible in the pews erupted in black flame. The pages didn't burn. They blackened, curling at the edges as smoke coiled upward to form words on the vaulted ceiling. The shepherd must join his flock. Outside, the cemetery gates swung open with a scream of rusted metal. Chapter 8. The Dreaming Dark. Maggie Whitewhite's parents found her at dawn, curled in a fetal position on her brother's empty grave, dirt packed beneath her fingernails, earth staining her nightgown. This marked the 7th consecutive night their 12-year-old had sleepwalked to Black Hollow Cemetery. Dr. Langford adjusted his glasses as he studied the EE results. These brainwave patterns, I've never seen anything like them. It's as if she's experiencing shared dreaming. The audio recorder they'd placed by Maggie's bed captured hours of whispering in languages no linguist could identify. Then, on the 7th night, something answered in a voice that wasn't Maggie's. Bring us the digger, the one who seeks the bones beneath. At the Black Hollow Historical Society, every document in the archive had been mysteriously rearranged overnight. All roads now led to one name. Professor Liam Carter, Archaeology Department, State University. Chapter 9. The Unearthed Truth. Liam Carter should have questioned why the university grant money came through so quickly. The approval process normally took months, but his Black Hollow excavation proposal had been funded within days. His team uncovered the stones by noon on their first dig. A pentagonal altar carved with symbols that matched those in the abandoned cabin. Exactly. The graduate students' nervous laughter died when their shovels hit the first child-sized skeleton. 7 skeletons in total, arranged in a starburst pattern, each skull crushed inward as if by tremendous focused pressure. Then there was the box. Rusted iron, about the size of a shoebox, buried directly beneath the central altar stone. Inside, 6-finger bones rested on faded velvet and one conspicuously empty space. That night, Liam's equipment recorded phenomena that defied explanation. Thermal cameras showed human-shaped cold spots moving against the wind. Ground-penetrating radar revealed an extensive cavern system directly beneath their tents. Audio pics captured whispers in the same dead language as Maggie's sleep-talking. At 3:33 a.m., Liam woke to the sound of something scraping against his tent poles. The rusted box sat on his desk, its lid open. The bones had rearranged themselves into a pointing hand, index finger aimed directly at his chest. His final journal entry read, "They showed me the truth. The cabin isn't a prison. It's a lock. And whatever's on the other side is waking up." When his team found the site the next morning, everything was perfectly preserved. The thermal camera's last image showed 7 figures standing around the excavation pit, though only 6 missing persons had ever been reported in Black Hollow. Chapter 10. The Breaking. On the autumn equinox, every resident of Black Hollow woke to the same nightmare. Mirrors reflected a version of their town, where the cabin stood at the center of a sprawling complex of rotting buildings. Church bells tolled 33 times, with no one pulling the ropes. The town's oldest resident, 109-year-old Agatha Blackwood, began screaming in a voice 3 octaves too deep. "The seal is broken." At the cabin, the front door swung open of its own accord. 7 figures emerged, the 5 missing campers, Deputy Wilkins, and Professor Carter. Their eyes had been replaced with smooth black stones that wept thick, dark fluid. When they spoke, their voices blended into something no human throat could produce. "We are the Guardians, the keepers of the seal. You have failed the covenant." Then the ground split open with the sound of 1,000 screaming voices. What crawled out from beneath Black Hollow defied description. Something vast and hungry that had been waiting in the dark for generations. The last transmission from County Dispatch captured State Trooper Henderson's final words. "Oh, sweet Jesus. The trees are moving. The shadows have teeth.